Alright, settle in for a moment, won't you? Wherever you are right now, whether it's the quiet hum of morning or the deep stillness of night, take a slow, deliberate breath. Good. Now imagine yourself somewhere else entirely. We're going back, far back, to a London that barely resembles the polished, historical city you might envision. The year is 1888, and as you step into its fog-choked streets, you quickly realize this isn't some polite, gaslit romance from a novel. Oh no, this is the raw, beating heart of industrial progress, and let me tell you, it has a smell, an undeniable, pervasive stench all its own. You feel it first, not see or hear, but truly feel it, a thick, almost palpable film on your tongue, a cloying, overwhelming assault on your nostrils. This is the so-called stench of progress, they whisper, but progress here smells like everything dying and everything desperately trying to live all at once. The reek of damp coal smoke bites, sharp and acrid, swirling with the earthy, often putrid rot of the River Thames, its polluted waters a mere stone's throw away. But that's just the opening act. Beneath it all, a more primal, visceral odor asserts itself, the piercing, ammoniac tang of horse urine mixed liberally with human waste that flows freely, sluggishly in the narrow gutters, barely disguised by the ever-present dampness. You're navigating these wretched, cobbled alleys, where the flickering, struggling gas lamps fight a losing battle against the encroaching, oppressive gloom, casting long, grotesque shadows that dance and writhe like tormented ghouls along the grimy brickwork. Your breath catches a harsh, ragged sound as the air, thick and uniformly grey with pea-soup fog and ubiquitous soot, scratches against the sensitive lining of your lungs. You instinctively pull your threadbare collar tighter around your neck, not merely against the biting chill that penetrates your clothes, but against the sheer, suffocating density of the atmosphere itself. Each tentative step you take is a small gamble. The uneven, broken pavement is slick with an unseen grime, a treacherous cocktail of greasy mud, discarded refuse, and something else unidentifiable squelching beneath your worn boots. You glimpse a rat, unsettlingly large and brazenly fat, scuttling with swift purpose into the deeper, impenetrable darkness between two overflowing, rusting refuse bins. Life here teems, relentless and often unsettlingly unseen just beyond the reach of the feeble lamplight. You pass a recessed doorway, a mere sliver of flickering lamplight spilling out from within, briefly illuminating the deeply haggard face of a woman, her eyes reflecting a profound weariness that seems to go right to the bone. She doesn't speak, doesn't offer a greeting, just watches you with an unnerving intensity, a silent, resigned observer in this vast, churning urban morass. You quicken your pace slightly, an unbidden sense of unease creeping insidiously up your spine, a chill that has nothing to do with the external temperature. The distant, rhythmic clatter of hooves on unseen cobblestones, the muffled, desperate cries of street vendors, hot eels, all hot, get 'em while you can. They all merge into a relentless, deafening cacophony that speaks of endless, grinding struggle of survival at any cost. Here, every single breath is an undeniable effort. Every corner turned holds the unsettling promise of both the profoundly mundane and the deeply, disturbingly unsettling. The imagined grandeur of Victorian London feels utterly miles away. This, you realize with a sinking heart, is its neglected, decaying underbelly perpetually suffocating under the overwhelming weight of its own output, its own relentless, grinding progress. It's a truly strange thing, isn't it, how remarkably quickly the human senses adapt. You push on, the biting chill clinging to your bones, and as you navigate the labyrinthine alleys, a new, insidious sensation settles in. It's the sheer weight of the buildings. These aren't proud, stately structures. No, these are cramped, tottering terraces leaning into each other, upper floors almost touching across incredibly narrow lanes. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the gloom, leaving the ground perpetually damp and shadowed. You duck instinctively under sagging archways, brickwork crumbling, blackened with soot, feeling the grit of ancient mortar dust on your skin. The density of humanity here is suffocating. Every small, often broken window spills muffled sounds of countless lives crammed into tiny spaces. You see laundry strung precariously across murky gaps, almost brushing greasy walls, a stark testament to the struggle for basic hygiene. A child no older than 5, vacant-eyed and grime-smeared, stands perfectly still in a doorway watching you pass. No curiosity in her gaze, just a profound, unsettling blankness, as if she's seen far too much. This isn't just a place, it's a trap. Streets twist and turn without logic, dead-ending into walls or opening onto another identical, claustrophobic passage. You try to get your bearings, but every turn looks the same. Every dark corner seems to conceal more shadow than light. It feels as though the very geography conspires to confuse, to hide, to swallow up anyone who dares to stray. The oppressive closeness, the sense of being watched yet utterly alone, presses down a physical weight. This, you realize, isn't just poverty, it's an architectural manifestation of despair, a landscape engineered for forgetting. And it's in these unlit, forgotten crevices, in this suffocating geography of human existence, that a different kind of fear begins to truly take hold. A fear born not just of destitution, but of profound invisibility. The cold you've discovered isn't just an external presence, it's something that hollows you out from the inside, a gnawing emptiness that settles deep in your bones. But tonight, it's joined by another, more insistent hunger, a persistent ache in your gut that's been growing steadily more desperate with each passing hour. You clench your jaw, your breath misting in the frigid air as you pull your hand from the thin, frayed lining of your coat pocket. In your palm nestles a single tarnished copper penny. It feels impossibly heavy, a small, insignificant disc of metal that now holds the terrifying weight of your immediate future. You turn it over with your thumb, the worn image of Queen Victoria's head, a grim reminder of a world of opulent wealth that feels a universe away from this desolate corner of Whitechapel. This isn't simply a coin, it's a decision. This isn't mere currency, it's the thin, ragged thread by which your very survival hangs tonight. Your eyes scan the dimly lit, grimy thoroughfare, the flickering gas lamps casting more shadow than light, revealing only fleeting, ghostly figures hurrying past, heads down, shoulders hunched against the perpetual damp and chill. The raw wind cutting through the narrow alleyways seems to carry with it the collective, desperate sighs of thousands like you. The options, you know, are stark and brutal. That penny could buy you a small, stale crust of bread, enough to quiet the immediate rebellion in your stomach for a few precious hours. Or perhaps a cup of weak, watery tea from a street vendor, offering a fleeting, illusionary warmth that won't last. But the true battle, the fight that truly matters, is for a bed. A spot on a shared, flea-ridden mattress in a common lodging house, where you'd pay your penny for the dubious privilege of a few hours of uneasy sleep, surrounded by the coughs and murmurs of countless other forgotten souls. Without it, the pavement is your cold, unforgiving mattress, the biting wind your blanket. The thought sends a fresh shiver, colder than the air itself, down your spine. You catch your reflection in the smeared window of a closed shop, a gaunt, tired face staring back, eyes wide with a weary desperation you hadn't fully acknowledged until now. The sight is jarring, a silent scream of the soul. You think of Mary, of Annie, of Elizabeth, women you've seen countless times in these very streets, making their own impossible choices, their own final, desperate bids for a penny. You've watched their faces, seen the fear, the resignation, the stark, brutal calculus of survival etched into every line and shadow. You see it now, reflected back at you. You hear the distant, mournful cry of a hansom cab, the clopping of horse hooves echoing ominously in the fog, a sound that always seems to herald something unknown, something unsettling. The penny feels heavier now, burning slightly in your palm, a constant, tangible reminder of your predicament. You know what you must do, what this last coin ultimately has to secure. You push off the cold wall you've been leaning against, the damp brick clinging to your threadbare coat. There's a certain grim finality in the decision, a profound, gut-wrenching understanding of the precipice you stand upon. This one small coin, this single paltry penny, is all that separates you from the utterly merciless, unforgiving embrace of the London night, and everything that lurks within its deepest, most shadowed corners. It's a terrifying power for so little a thing to hold, isn't it? The sheer, brutal weight of a single penny dictating not just your comfort, but your very ability to face another dawn. A sudden sharp cough from a passerby makes you flinch, the sound unnervingly loud in what feels like a sudden oppressive silence. You glance around, a cold knot tightening in your stomach, a chill unrelated to the damp air. It's a silence that holds something, a heavy, unspoken dread that hangs in the very air you breathe, a stark contrast to the usual cacophony of Whitechapel. You feel a familiar, unsettling awareness settle upon you, a sense of being acutely observed yet utterly alone. You've heard the whispers, haven't you? Fragments of stories, passed in hushed tones between women huddled near the flickering lamps of the common lodging houses. Names now spoken with a fearful reverence, tales of fates that chill you to the bone. Polly, Annie, Liz, Catherine, Mary Jane, they weren't just names anymore, they were a litany of terror, a grim testament to the utter fragility of life here. You've seen their faces, perhaps in fleeting glances on these very streets, etched with the same weary desperation you've come to know intimately. Women like you struggling, surviving, making impossible choices for a shilling, a penny, a bed for the night. And that's the truly terrifying part, isn't it? It's not just about them. It's about asterisk her asterisk. It's about how, in these shadowed, unforgiving streets, any one of them, any woman forced to walk alone in the gaslit gloom, becomes the next target. You feel it in the way you quicken your pace, your eyes darting nervously into every alleyway, every recessed doorway. It's in the instinctive clutch of your shawl tighter around your shoulders, as if the thin fabric could offer protection from something far more insidious than the biting cold. You scan the blurred figures in the distance, each one a potential predator, each one a potential harbinger of unspeakable horror. Their deaths, spoken of in grim, hushed tones, have stripped away any illusion of safety, any thin veil of anonymity. They have exposed the raw, brutal truth that in this desperate world for a woman alone, survival often means confronting the very edges of danger. And when the killer comes, in the oppressive anonymity of the fog and the maze-like streets, the faces of Polly, Annie, Liz, Catherine, Mary Jane blur into one. They become the one woman, the archetypal victim, whose only crime was desperation, whose only vulnerability was being female and alone in the night. The thought sends a cold, sharp tremor through you. How easily, how terrifyingly easily their story could become yours. That perhaps is the true, enduring terror, realizing that in this darkness, the lines between them and you have vanished completely. The biting cold has deepened, gnawing at your fingers and toes, but now a fresh, piercing scent claws its way into your nostrils. It's acrid, vaguely chemical, cutting through the usual Whitechapel miasma, a stark, unsettling odor of carbolic acid and something else, something cloyingly sweet and metallic that instantly makes your stomach churn. You've stumbled upon a scene, a small, tightly packed huddle of figures illuminated by the wavering light of a single flickering lantern. Police constables, their helmets gleaming dully in the gloom, form a loose, grim cordon, holding back a small, murmuring crowd of the morbidly curious, their faces grey and shadowed. You strain to see, pushing past a man whose breath smells stale with cheap gin, and another woman, her face a mask of horrified fascination. There, in the center of the hushed tableau, you see him. A figure in a dark, impeccably tailored coat, his movements precise, almost unnervingly detached. This is the doctor. His gloved hands, pale even in the weak light, move with a startling efficiency, sifting through items on the damp, cobbled ground, making notes in a small book with meticulous care. You can't make out the details of what he's examining, but the heavy silence from the police, the way the few women in the crowd clutch their shawls tighter and avert their gaz eyes, tells you everything you need to know. You notice the rigid set of his jaw, the narrowed intensity in his gaze as he leans over the indistinguishable shape on the ground. There's no emotion in his expression, no flicker of horror or sympathy, just a stark, unwavering focus, a purely clinical gaze. His breath plumes in the cold air, a stark contrast to the almost icy stillness of his hands as they probe, measure, and catalogue. It's as if the sheer brutality of the scene is simply another puzzle to be solved, another cold equation for his intellect. The faint scrape of a metallic instrument against something unseen sends a shiver through the silent onlookers, a collective intake of breath. This isn't grief, you realize. It's a grim, professional accounting, a systematic dissection of unthinkable tragedy. And as you watch his methodical, unyielding efficiency, you feel a new layer of dread unfold. Not just the terror of the monstrous acts, but the chilling disquiet of understanding that even in the face of such profound human suffering, the response is often one of cold, objective detachment. What does that say about the world, you wonder, when even the attempt to comprehend such horror must strip itself bare of all feeling, leaving only the dispassionate gaze of the doctor's cold, calculating hands? It's as if even our deepest fears can be reduced to a series of facts, a catalogue of injuries, losing their terrifying essence in the sterile light of clinical scrutiny. The silence around the doctor is heavy, broken only by the faint, rhythmic scratching of his pen against paper, a sound that feels unnervingly clinical amidst the damp, grimy street. You can almost hear the low, collective shudder that passes through the small, huddled crowd as the lantern light catches the glint of a small, polished steel instrument in his hand. He works with an almost surgical deliberation, his movements precise, devoid of hesitation, as if he's dissecting something in a lecture theatre, not examining a body on a cold, unforgiving pavement. You don't need to see the full horror to feel it. The grim set of the constables' faces, the way their eyes refuse to meet yours, the muffled gasps from the women in the crowd, it all paints a horrifying picture in your mind. You catch fragments of hushed whispers, words like cut, skill, expert, uttered in tones of profound, bewildered terror. This isn't the crude, desperate violence of a street brawl you instinctively understand. This is something else entirely, something chillingly deliberate, almost intelligent. The sheer, unnerving precision of the injuries, a detail that has been whispered through the East End since the first victim, suggests a knowledge, a hand that understands the human form intimately. You feel a cold sweat prickle your skin despite the bitter air. It's the realization that this monster isn't just a brute, he's something far more sinister. He knows where to cut, what to remove, how to inflict maximum terror not just on the victim, but on anyone who dares to look upon his handiwork. The doctor's dispassionate examination, his very scientific approach, only serves to amplify this dread. Each precise movement, each measured observation, inadvertently highlights the terrifying craftsmanship of the killer. It's as if the medical lens, instead of demystifying the horror, is inadvertently celebrating its methodical, almost artistic brutality. As the doctor finally straightens, his face still unreadable, you see the subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the constable's posture, a tightening of their shoulders, a quick, nervous glance between them. They've seen things, heard things that confirm the whispers, that validate the deepest, most primal fear. The true terror, you realize, isn't just in the violent act itself. It's in the horrifying knowledge that such calculated cruelty can exist, that a human can inflict such meticulous devastation. This isn't just murder, it's the chilling anatomy of evil itself, laid bare, leaving you to ponder how easily the familiar can turn utterly monstrous. The rhythmic thudding assaults your ears long before you see its source, a deep mechanical pulse that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. It's a sound of raw, unyielding industry, unlike anything else in this grimy district. As you round a particularly foul-smelling corner, the smell hits you, a powerful, almost intoxicating blend of thick, oily ink and freshly cut paper, a scent that speaks not of progress but of relentless production. You've stumbled into the fringes of Fleet Street's frantic energy, near a small, bustling outpost where the latest editions are being churned out with a terrifying speed. The air here is thick with a different kind of fog, not the damp, natural variety, but a palpable haze of dust, ink particles, and the frantic energy of men straining against time. You crane your neck, pushing past a burly drayman whose face is streaked with soot to glimpse the source. Mammoth machines groan and clatter, giant rollers gobbling up endless sheets of paper, spitting out crisp, still damp broadsheets with a dizzying velocity. The men working them are drenched in sweat, their faces grim, their movements a blur of practiced efficiency. This isn't a leisurely read, this is a factory of information, and it's running at a fever pitch. And then you hear them. The shrill, insistent cries that cut through the mechanical din, piercing the grey morning air like frantic seagulls over a stormy sea. Read all about it. Another one, read all about it. Newsboys impossibly young, their voices already hoarse, weave through the throng like desperate sprites, their arms laden with stacks of still-warm papers. Their urgency is infectious, their cries a potent siren song of dread. You watch as men and women, despite their own obvious poverty, fumble for a halfpenny, their faces a mixture of fear and insatiable curiosity. They don't just want the news. They need it, a morbid hunger that twists their features into grotesque fascination. You find yourself reaching out, an unbidden impulse, and a scrawny boy shoves a paper into your hand, his eyes wide and knowing. The ink, still wet, smears slightly on your cold fingers, leaving a stark black stain. Your gaze falls immediately to the banner headline, stark and uncompromising in bold, black type. It's the latest, the most brutal update, delivered with a sensationalism that curdles your blood. The words scream off the page, painting a horrifying picture, detailing fresh atrocities in grim, explicit terms. You read of another name, another life extinguished in the same brutal, familiar fashion. The details are sparse yet horrific, each word a hammer blow to your already rattled nerves. This isn't just news reporting. It's the weaponization of fear. The printing presses don't just inform, they amplify. They take the isolated, horrifying incidents from the shadowed alleys of Whitechapel and hurl them into every corner of the city, stoking a collective terror that grows with each successive edition. You feel it now, the cold dread solidifying in your chest, a sense of omnipresent danger that reaches far beyond the immediate confines of the East End. The killer isn't just in the shadows anymore. He's in your hands, on the page, in every whispered conversation. You realize with a chilling certainty that the true genius of the Ripper's reign of terror wasn't just his barbarity, but how his savagery was meticulously, almost gleefully, broadcast to an entire nation, twisting the very fabric of public discourse into a tapestry of fear. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? How easily a few printed words can transform raw local horror into a widespread, unshakable national nightmare. You're still gripping the newspaper, the rough texture of the paper almost dissolving into the cold dampness of your palm, the fresh ink still leaving its trace. But it's not just the physical sensation that grips you now. It's the words themselves, bold, lurid type screams from the pages, not simply reporting facts but painting vivid, horrifying pictures in your mind. Fiend, monster of Whitechapel, Jack the Ripper strikes again. The name itself, first whispered, then scrawled in letters to Scotland Yard, has now been etched into the public consciousness by these very presses, a chilling brand given to an unseen horror. You trace the words with your finger, a grotesque fascination holding you captive. The stories aren't just accounts of brutal murders, they are theatrical productions, embellished with dramatic flourishes and gruesome speculation. Each detail, no matter how small or unconfirmed, is magnified, sensationalized, transforming the victims from desperate women into figures of tragic public spectacle. The killer, in turn, is elevated from a nameless assailant to a shadowy, almost mythical figure, an embodiment of pure, unadulterated evil. You see it in the wide-eyed glances of others holding their own copies, the way their lips move silently, relishing the terror, yet recoiling from it simultaneously. This relentless churning of ink and paper doesn't just inform, it invents. It takes the raw, visceral fear from the gaslit alleys of the East End and catapults it across London into the drawing rooms of the wealthy, into the common rooms of every household. No longer confined to the impoverished and forgotten, the terror now has a name, a legend crafted by the very newspapers you hold. It's a brand new kind of monster, not of myth or folklore, but one born directly from the breathless reporting, the speculative headlines, and the insatiable public appetite for scandal and dread. You notice a group of well-dressed gentlemen nearby, their faces grim, their voices low but agitated, discussing the latest atrocities with an almost feverish intensity. Even they, far removed from the desperate streets, are caught in the web spun by these publications. This killer isn't just haunting Whitechapel anymore, he's haunting the entire city, a spectre conjured into existence, piece by horrifying piece, by the very engine of modern communication. You realize with a chilling certainty that this isn't just news, it's the birth of a legend, a terrifying icon forged in the crucible of public fear and journalistic frenzy, destined to terrify not just a generation, but countless ones to come. It's a strange, unsettling power, isn't it, how words on a page can build a monster more terrifying than any flesh and blood man. You hear it first, a deliberate heavy rhythm approaching through the thick, swirling fog, the distinctive thud of a regulation police boot on damp cobblestones. It's a sound that should bring reassurance, a promise of order in this chaotic maze, but in these grim times it carries an unsettling tension all its own. As the figure emerges from the gloom, you see him clearly. A constable, a solid block of dark blue wool, his helmet catching the faint, struggling glow of a distant gas lamp. He holds his truncheon at his side, a silent, weighty presence, his gaze sweeping over the grimy street, unwavering yet strangely detached. You instinctively press yourself back against the cold, damp brick of the alley wall, trying to fade further into the deepening shadows. He doesn't overtly acknowledge you or anyone else lingering in the doorways, but you feel the weight of his scrutiny, a fleeting, impersonal assessment. His stride is measured, tireless, each step a testament to the endless, often fruitless patrolling of these unforgiving streets. The damp wool of his uniform seems to absorb the chill, making him appear an immovable force against the pervasive misery of Whitechapel. You notice the deep lines etched around his eyes, a weariness that speaks volumes of long, harrowing nights spent chasing ghosts and piecing together horrors. He is the visible face of authority, the physical embodiment of the law, yet his very presence only serves to highlight the terrifying truth. The killer remains uncaught. You watch his eyes ceaselessly scanning, probing the darkness, searching for a phantom. There's a subtle desperation in his vigilance, a silent plea in his unwavering focus, as if he hopes that this time, this very moment, he might glimpse the elusive shadow that has brought the entire city to its knees. The fear isn't just for yourself, or for the unknown women still walking these streets. It's a shared collective dread that even this symbol of order, this determined man in blue, seems utterly powerless against the escalating, incomprehensible violence. As he passes, his heavy footsteps receding back into the swirling mist, the brief sense of surveillance lifts, replaced by an even deeper, more profound sense of vulnerability. He is a shield, yes, but a porous one, stretched thin across a wound too vast to staunch. You realize that his very existence on these streets, night after night, is a stark, grim reminder that even in the face of relentless effort and an imposing uniform, some evils remain stubbornly beyond reach. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it, that even the guardians of society are themselves haunted by the shadows they cannot quite dispel. The air here, indoors yet still permeated by the city's damp chill, smells stale with unemptied pipes and strong, black tea, a faint undercurrent of nervous perspiration clinging to the threadbare carpets. You push open a heavy oak door, or perhaps it's simply left ajar, an invitation to the shared frustration, and step into a room where order battles chaos, and chaos is winning. This isn't the imposing facade of Scotland Yard, but a smaller, more intimate command post, a desperate attempt to bring the formidable machinery of law enforcement closer to the volatile heart of Whitechapel. Your eyes sweep over the scene. Maps, huge, detailed charts of the district, are tacked to every available wall, crisscrossed with lines of red and blue thread that lead nowhere, ending abruptly at dead ends, or looping back on themselves in disheartening circles. You see the scrawled names, the dates, the grim terse notes that summarize unspeakable acts, each one a stark, chilling monument to another life extinguished. Men in various stages of dishevelment, detectives in their rumpled suits, constables whose uniforms are creased and stained, huddle around a large, cluttered table, their faces etched with a profound, weary frustration that mirrors the very lines on the map. You watch as a detective, his brow furrowed so deeply it seems permanently etched, slams a fist softly onto a pile of crumpled reports. He gestures wildly towards a section of the map, his hand slicing through the air with an almost desperate plea for understanding, but the others merely offer tired, resigned shrugs. There's no fire in their movements, no sudden spark of revelation, just the grinding, relentless effort of trying to catch smoke. You see another man, older, his hair thinning, run a hand over his face, leaving behind a smudge of ink from the newspaper clipping he was just studying. The sheer volume of paper, of evidence, of contradictory witness accounts seems to press down on them, an suffocating weight of information that maddeningly provides no answers. The room buzzes with a low, constant murmur of voices, theories exchanged, dismissed, re-examined, then discarded again. It's a hopeless drone, a litany of what-ifs and dead ends, a collective groan of exhausted minds. You notice a corkboard brimming with wanted posters, crude sketches of suspicious characters, each one quickly rendered obsolete by lack of evidence, or simply by another, more pressing horror. The sense of being overwhelmed, of being outmaneuvered by an unseen, elusive enemy, hangs heavy in the air, a palpable shroud of futility. These men, meant to be the bastions of order and justice, appear trapped in a bewildering labyrinth of their own making, unable to grasp the monstrous thread that weaves through the darkest corners of their city. It's a truly unnerving thing, isn't it, to witness the very instruments of order struggling so mightily, so desperately against a chaos that seems to mock their every effort. It leaves you with a chilling question. If even the most determined pursuit of justice can be so utterly blindsided, then what hope is there for anyone left alone in the encroaching darkness? The sharp, metallic shriek of the bolt sliding home tears through the otherwise suffocating silence, a brutally final sound that makes you jump. Your heart, already a frantic drum against your ribs, races even faster. You stand there, hands still resting on the rough, cold iron of the newly secured bolt, breath held tight in your chest. The door itself, a battered, scarred slab of wood, feels like a flimsy shield against the encroaching darkness of the Whitechapel night. Yet with that simple, decisive movement, you've performed a ritual that countless others are enacting across the city, a small, desperate act of defiance against the unspeakable dread that has settled over every street, every alleyway. You lean back against the solid wood, feeling the faint vibrations of the city's restless heartbeat through it. The air in this cramped, airless room is stale, smelling faintly of coal smoke and old tea, but it's an infinitely preferable stench to the putrid miasma that clings to the streets outside. Outside, the fog still swirls, a thick grey blanket muffling sounds, distorting shapes and turning familiar thoroughfares into a labyrinth of shifting shadows. You strain your ears, trying to discern the faint, distant sounds that penetrate the thick door. The mournful cry of a hawker, the distant clatter of a hansom cab, the unsettling, rhythmic beat of an unknown pair of footsteps that seem to grow louder, then fade, then perhaps grow louder again. Your imagination, stoked by weeks of relentless newspaper headlines and whispered horrors, paints chilling scenarios just beyond your flimsy barrier. A shiver, unrelated to the damp chill that still clings to your clothes, runs down your spine. This isn't simply locking a door against thieves, you realize. This is an attempt to lock out a spectral terror, an unseen, unknowable fiend that stalks the gaslit gloom with a horrifying surgical precision. The women you've known, the ones whose names are now etched onto crude newspaper broadsheets, they all shared one thing: they were alone outside when the shadows deepened. You close your eyes for a moment, picturing their faces, their weary desperation, their impossible choices for a penny or a bed. This bolted door, this simple act, is your plea for a different fate. The sudden, soft groan of the old building settling, a mere creak of timber, makes your eyes snap open. You instinctively press harder against the door, as if your own weight could somehow reinforce its fragile protection. The silence inside is now almost deafening, a stark contrast to the relentless, anxiety-inducing murmur of the street. Here in this tiny sanctuary you are for now safe. But the quiet is heavy, fraught with the lingering echo of that sharp, metallic click, a sound that promises temporary respite but never truly banishes the terrifying knowledge that some doors once opened can never truly be rebolted. It's a strange comfort, isn't it, knowing that a thin piece of wood and a bit of iron now represent the sum total of your defense against the deepest, most primal fears lurking just beyond the threshold. You press your ear to the cold wood of the door. It's not the outside world that truly haunts you now, but the unnerving stillness within. This cramped room, your refuge, feels heavy, suffocating. You're enclosed by timber and a bolted lock, yet your mind still reels from the relentless drumbeat of dread. The silence isn't comforting, it's pregnant with imagined whispers, phantom footsteps. Every shadow from the flickering gaslight elongates into something monstrous, watchful. You pull away, heart thumping, wrapping your arms tightly. This is how terror spreads, isn't it? This invisible pestilence. It's not just blood or headlines. It's how suspicion now colors every familiar face. The kind smile of the baker's wife, now you wonder if it masks something cold. The burly street sweeper, once a fixture, now seems capable of horrors. It has twisted trust, turning neighbors into threats, every man a suspect. You glance at the window, a small, grimy square, a distorted blur of yellow fog. The city isn't just outside your door. It's inside your head, its terror a constant, insidious companion. This contagion of fear doesn't leave you when the door is bolted. It seeps under the cracks, settling deep within your psyche. It forces you to question everything, to see danger in every corner, to measure every sound, every shadow against horrifying possibilities. You are safe, perhaps for now. But the knowledge that such evil walks freely, poisoning human connection, is a cold, enduring terror all its own. What truly protects you, you ponder, when the very air you breathe is laced with unshakable dread. The walls may be thick, but your mind offers no such sanctuary. The gaslight, you've come to realize, is a fickle, unreliable friend. Its hiss, a constant, faint whisper in the night, is almost as unsettling as the oppressive silence it attempts to pierce. You step out onto the pavement, and immediately the light plays its trick. The nearest lamp, a solitary, struggling orb of sickly yellow, casts more shadow than illumination, its flickering flame dancing wildly in the damp night air, making everything around it swim and distort. It's like watching a grotesque ballet, where the stage is the grimy street and the performers are the fleeting, monstrous shapes conjured from the darkness. You find yourself peering into the gloom, your eyes straining, trying to decipher the blurry edges of what might be a doorway or merely a deeper pool of shadow. The gaslight throws long, exaggerated silhouettes of lampposts and chimney stacks against the sooty brickwork, making them writhe and stretch like skeletal giants. A lone figure passes on the opposite side of the street, its form elongated, wavering, an indistinct shape that could be anyone or anything. Your heart gives a sudden, sharp lurch, a primal fear clutching at your throat, before the figure drifts out of the lamp's meager embrace, disappearing back into the comforting anonymity of the thick fog. The light seems to actively conspire against clarity, doesn't it? Every familiar object takes on an unnerving new guise under its unsteady glow. A pile of discarded crates becomes a crouching beast, a stray piece of flapping canvas a ghostly presence. The very air around you feels alive with unseen threats born not of substance but of suggestion. You instinctively quicken your pace, your gaze darting from one flickering pool of light to the next, trying to stay within its illusory safety, even as you know its very nature is to deceive. The distant, muted rumble of a cart, usually a comforting sign of life, now seems laden with an ominous undertone, approaching from an unknowable direction, its source obscured by the dancing light and pervasive mist. You notice other figures, fellow travelers in this uncertain world, also hugging the edges of the light, their faces etched with the same weary apprehension, their eyes wide with the same nervous darting glances. They don't speak, but their silent urgency, their tightly drawn shawls and hunched shoulders speaks volumes. You're all participants in this grim nightly ritual, navigating a world where the very light that should guide you instead distorts and deceives, amplifying the terror of what remains hidden. This isn't simply walking home, it's a desperate passage through a landscape of shifting shadows and imagined horrors, where every corner holds the potential for the unspeakable. It's a truly curious thing, isn't it, how the very technology meant to conquer darkness can, in its unsteady, unreliable flickering, only serve to deepen our most primal fears, transforming the mundane into the utterly menacing. You realize that the darkness isn't just the absence of light, it's the uncertain space between the lights, where fear finds its truest, most terrifying form. You hear faint carriage bells, a melodic tinkle on the cold breeze. It's an echo from a glittering London full of theatre-goers, a stark contrast to the damp squalor you've known. But as you push west, the change is jarring. Paving stones become less broken, the grime thinner. Gas lamps here burn brighter, steadier, casting confident glows. Buildings stand taller, prouder, their cleaner windows displaying goods instead of just shadows. This is another world entirely, yet the terror has clearly seeped in. Even in this respectable veneer you see it. A gentleman instinctively pulls his wife closer as shadows deepen. Newspaper sellers, once confined to the East End, now push sensational broadsheets on these grander thoroughfares, their cries of "Ripper" echoing with unsettling reach. You watch a lady in fine bonnets take a paper, her delicate fingers trembling. Her fear isn't Whitechapel's gut-wrenching desperation, it's a more insidious, polite terror. Victorian propriety, usually so rigid, feels utterly fragile. The darkness from down there has breached social class, staining ordered lives. It's a chilling realization, isn't it, how barbaric acts in the city's darkest corners could bind two Londons together, not by wealth or progress but by a shared, inescapable fear. What was once isolated despair has become a universal dread, bridging the chasm between the opulent and the forgotten, haunting every single soul. You feel it before you properly see it. Your fingers brush against something cold, stiff, and repellently damp in the uncertain gloom. There's a texture there, rough and coarse like heavy canvas, but utterly foreign in its present state. A metallic tang, sharp and unmistakable, instantly assaults your nostrils, cutting through the perpetual Whitechapel stench of coal, damp, and human refuse. It's the smell of iron, of copper, but profoundly, sickeningly, of something more primal. You recoil instinctively, a knot tightening in your stomach, but a morbid curiosity, a morbid dread, forces your hand to trace its outline in the shadows. As your fingers fully grasp the object, a sickening realization dawns. This isn't just damp fabric, it's an apron heavy with what feels like a congealed, sticky residue. The cold, clammy touch of it sends a violent shiver, colder than any autumn wind, straight through your entire being. You pull it closer, the flickering light from a distant gas lamp finally illuminating its horrific truth. It is dark, yes, but not with shadow. It's a deep, rust-brown, almost black in places, stiffened and crusted with vast, unmistakable stains. Blood, so much blood. The sheer volume of it soaked into the thick material tells a story of unimaginable violence, a tale whispered in gruesome detail across every newspaper headline. You hold it, this tangible piece of horror, and the chill penetrates to your very bones. It feels heavy, impossibly heavy, a weight that far exceeds mere fabric and dried liquid. It's the weight of a life violently extinguished, the silent scream of an unspeakable act. The metallic smell, now overwhelmingly potent, seems to cling to your fingers, to your clothes, to the very air you breathe, a constant, pervasive reminder of its grim origin. Your breath catches in your throat, shallow and ragged, as your mind races, piecing together the grim tableau. This apron, this ordinary piece of working-class attire, now feels like a direct conduit to the terror that has gripped the city. You imagine the frantic struggles, the desperate cries, the chilling silence that must have followed, all imprinted upon these dark, silent fibers. This isn't abstract fear anymore, not just newspaper sensationalism or whispered rumor. This is raw, visceral horror right here in your hands. You glance around, a sudden acute awareness of your own vulnerability sharpening your senses. Every shadow seems to deepen, every distant cough seems to hold a predatory note. The fog, already an oppressive presence, now feels like a conspirator, ready to swallow secrets and perpetrators alike. You find yourself turning the apron over, your fingers gingerly probing the stiffened material, as if trying to discern some hidden message, some clue embedded in its horrifying texture. But there is nothing but the relentless, awful truth of its grim purpose. This apron, once a symbol of honest labor, has been twisted into something utterly monstrous, a silent witness to a brutality that defies comprehension. It's a stark, chilling testament to the unseen, unholy work of a fiend, a direct, undeniable link to the dark heart of Whitechapel's terror. The experience leaves an indelible mark, doesn't it? Knowing that such ordinary objects can become so utterly saturated with unspeakable horror, and how that touch, that scent, can bind you so inextricably to the chilling reality of human cruelty. The cold, damp brick scrapes against your gloved hand as you navigate the narrow passage, the air still heavy with the stench of coal and river mud. Then your gaze catches it. Not an advertisement, not political graffiti, but something far more crude, more sinister, scrawled low on the wall, barely illuminated by the weak, flickering gaslight from the street beyond. It's an unsettling smear of deep, dark red, crudely forming letters that seem to pulse with a malevolent life of their own, almost blending into the grimy brickwork until your eyes truly focus. Your breath hitches. It's a message, a declaration. The words themselves are stark, crude, as if scratched by an unsteady yet determined hand. It's a deliberate, disturbing scrawl formed from something thick and dark. Is it soot mixed with water, or something far more gruesome, far more sickening? The letters are uneven, almost childish in their formation, yet they scream an adult malice. You read the words and they burn themselves into your mind, chilling you to the bone. It's a defiant, taunting challenge, a brazen boast flung directly into the face of a terrified city and its increasingly desperate guardians. You feel a sudden, intense awareness of the profound silence that has fallen around you, broken only by the frantic pounding of your own heart. This isn't merely a message, it's a sneer, a psychological weapon. It transforms the damp, grimy alley from a mere crime scene into a battlefield of wits, a dark theater where the killer is not just an unseen specter, but a perverse orchestrator. You glance around, a sudden paranoia prickling your skin. Is he watching? Is this message meant for you, for everyone, a deliberate escalation of the psychological warfare? The constables, when they arrive, their lanterns casting frantic, dancing shadows, will stare at these very words, their faces grim, their exasperation palpable. This isn't just a crime. It's a personal affront, a chilling game played out in blood and ink. The cold emanating from the wall seems to intensify, seeping into your very bones, no longer just the damp of the brick, but the deeper chill of pure, unadulterated evil. This message isn't just about the victims. It's about control, about the terrifying power an unknown individual can wield over an entire metropolis, simply by leaving a few audacious, blood-soaked words on a forgotten wall. It's truly unsettling, isn't it, how a few crude strokes can transform a simple brick wall into a chilling canvas of human depravity, a lasting echo of a psychological terror that continues to resonate long after the perpetrator has faded into the shadows. You realize that the Ripper didn't just kill, he communicated, he taunted, and in doing so, he etched his monstrous legend into the very fabric of London's darkest nightmares. The air, usually bustling with the anonymous cacophony of London, now feels different. It's a subtle shift, a chilling undercurrent that makes the hairs on your arms prickle. You're in a common house, perhaps seeking a moment's respite from the biting chill, and as you try to warm your hands by the meager fire, you become acutely aware of the glances. They are quick, furtive, darting. Not hostile precisely, but laden with an unspoken question, a flicker of apprehension that passes from face to face. You notice a man across the room, his eyes lingering on your silhouette, then quickly averting them when you meet his gaze. A woman nursing a watered-down ale pulls her shawl tighter, her eyes nervously scanning the faces around her, including yours. This isn't just personal paranoia, you realize. This is the collective weight of suspicion, a new, invisible fog that has settled over Whitechapel, thicker and more insidious than any pea souper. Every stranger is now a potential monster, every familiar face a canvas for doubt. You find yourself doing it too, your gaze lingering a fraction too long on the dark stains on a labourer's apron, or the sudden, nervous movement of a man reaching into his pocket. Could it be him? Could it be anyone? The papers, with their wild theories and lurid descriptions, have done their work too well, planting seeds of doubt in every mind. The silence here is punctuated not by conversation, but by the nervous coughs, the shuffling of feet, the clinking of glasses that suddenly seem too loud. You feel your own posture shift, your shoulders hunching slightly, an unconscious attempt to appear less conspicuous, less threatening. You notice your hands, calloused and rough, and wonder if they could be misconstrued, if their strength could be seen as something sinister. The constant fear of the killer is now amplified by a secondary terror, the fear of being seen as the killer, or of being caught in the crossfire of this widespread, unshakable distrust. You recall a rumor you heard earlier about a man falsely accused, beaten nearly senseless by an angry mob. The thought sends a fresh jolt of fear through you. Justice, swift and brutal, is now being meted out by terrified neighbors, spurred on by rumor and unhinged speculation. It's a terrifying thing, this erosion of trust, this turning of fear inward, making even those who should stand together against the darkness become isolated, suspicious islands. You grasp your almost empty mug, the cold metal a small anchor in this swirling sea of unspoken fear. In this atmosphere, you realize the greatest terror isn't just the monster in the shadows, but the monster that fear itself can create within all of us. And that, you decide, is perhaps the most haunting legacy of all. The gaslight, even in this relatively busy thoroughfare, seems to play cruel tricks tonight, its hesitant glow dancing across the faces of the milling crowd. As you walk shoulder to shoulder with strangers, you find yourself doing it almost unconsciously now. Scrutinizing every face you pass, every pair of eyes that meets yours for a fleeting, unsettling moment. The air feels charged with this unspoken examination, a mutual, wary assessment that makes the hairs on your neck prickle. A man steps out of a pub, his face ruddy from drink and the cold, his laugh loud, a little too boisterous. Your eyes linger on him for a beat too long, taking in his slightly disheveled appearance, the rough texture of his coat. Could it be him? He catches your gaze and his laughter dies, replaced by a quick, suspicious frown before he hurries on. Then a quiet, almost scholarly-looking gentleman, spectacles perched on his nose, walks past, his eyes downcast. He seems harmless, almost frail, yet the terrifying anonymity of the Ripper means even the most unassuming figure could conceal unimaginable darkness. You find yourself wondering about the precise, almost surgical cuts described in the papers, and whether such a delicate hand could inflict them. This is the grim new game Whitechapel plays. Every face in the crowd becomes a potential suspect, a blank slate onto which the city's deepest fears are projected. There's no distinct description, no clear image of the monster, only vague, conflicting accounts that could fit countless men. It means that the burly docker, the quiet clerk, the polite doctor, even the seemingly respectable shopkeeper, any one of them could be him. You watch a young woman pull her child closer as a shadowed figure crosses their path, her fear a palpable, almost suffocating wave. The terror isn't just about what the Ripper does, it's about who he could be. He's not a distant legend, but a terrifyingly ordinary man hiding in plain sight, perhaps even brushing past you on this very street. This unsettling ambiguity, this terrifying sense that the monster wears 1,000 faces, is what truly gnaws at your peace. You realize that in this fog of suspicion, every familiar and unfamiliar face blurs, transforming the ordinary into the potentially monstrous. It's a profound and chilling thought, isn't it? How the absence of a distinct face can turn every single face into a terrifying possibility. You hear it now, not with your ears but deep in the cold knot of your stomach, the ghost of a scratch, dry and insistent, across cheap, thin paper. You picture it vividly, the ink black and unforgiving, bleeding slightly into the rough fibers as a pen is pressed down with deliberate, unsettling intent. This is the Ripper's pen, and its output is poison. You imagine the unsettling hush in an office, a police station, or a newspaper editor's den as a fresh envelope is opened, its contents pulled out with trembling fingers. The letters arrive like malevolent gifts, sometimes addressed to boss, sometimes to dear old bossy, always with that chilling, mocking familiarity. You see the crude handwriting, the uneven lines, a perverse intimacy in each stroke that seems to defy the formal, upright script of the age. Each word, each hastily formed letter, feels like a deliberate personal taunt, flung from the deepest shadows directly into the heart of London's supposed order. This isn't just a killer. It's a communicator, a showman, reveling in the terror he orchestrates. The very act of reading these words, seeing them printed in the sensationalist papers, feels like a violation, a chilling invasion of your mind. You feel the ghost of that pen dragging across the page, forming the words that will soon set an entire city ablaze with renewed panic. The boastful tone, the cruel humor, the sheer audacity of it all, it's designed to provoke, to terrorize, to ensure that even in his physical absence, his presence is utterly inescapable. It's not just the brutal murders that define his reign of terror, it's this chilling voice, reaching out from the abyss, twisting the very narrative of dread with a few strokes of a pen. The weight of it, the cold, heavy knowledge that the monster is not just a force of violence, but a calculating, articulate presence settles deep in your chest. This is the ultimate sickening power. To not just take lives but to shape the fear, to craft a legend, ensuring that his dreadful hand reaches far beyond the scene of the crime, right into the deepest, most private corners of public imagination. It truly makes you wonder, doesn't it, how a few words scrawled in the dead of night can echo with such a profound and lasting chill, embedding themselves in the very consciousness of a nation. Imagine you're there in a smoke-filled room at Scotland Yard, amongst the weary detectives, the air thick with the smell of stale pipe tobacco and damp frustration. Someone pushes a new piece of paper across the table towards you. It's not a formal document, it's a crude, cheap postcard, its edges rough, stained slightly as if it's been handled by many nervous hands. The handwriting, you notice instantly, is the same unsettling scrawl you've seen in the newspapers, the same malicious, almost childish flourishes that make your skin crawl. This isn't a clue, it's a message, a direct, chilling address from the abyss. You trace the words with your finger, a grotesque fascination overriding your revulsion. Each sentence is a taunt, a boast, a cold, calculated sneer at the very forces trying to capture him. He speaks directly to boss, to the police, with a familiarity that makes it feel deeply, unnervingly personal. It's as if he's sitting across from you, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. He describes his latest atrocity, or perhaps hints at the next, in a tone that suggests a macabre game, an intimate, terrifying dialogue between hunter and hunted. This isn't just a killer leaving evidence. He's performing, communicating, reveling in the chaos he sows. The true horror of these letters, you realize, isn't just their content, but the very act of receiving them. They break down the barrier between the mundane world and the monstrous. The police, meant to be unfeeling instruments of justice, are forced into a perverse conversation with pure evil. He dictates the terms of the terror, not just with his knife, but with his pen, twisting the narrative, drawing everyone into his dark, twisted world. The feeling of helplessness in that room is palpable. They are being played, provoked, their every move watched and commented on by an unseen, malevolent presence. You look at the postcard again, its cheap surface now feeling impossibly heavy, charged with an unspeakable energy. It's a chilling artifact of a mind utterly devoid of remorse, a direct, unfiltered glimpse into the heart of a darkness that defies comprehension. This isn't just ink on paper. It's a conduit, a direct line, a dialogue with hell itself. And the terrifying part, you're forced to listen, you're forced to engage, and the monster knows it. It's a truly unsettling thought, isn't it, that in the face of such profound evil, our only recourse is to be drawn into its grotesque, terrifying conversation. The biting cold has been your constant companion tonight, a gnawing ache in your fingers and toes, a relentless presence that seems to have seeped into your very bones. But then, a sudden fiery warmth explodes on your tongue, a harsh, almost medicinal burn that quickly spreads through your throat and stomach. It's the cheap gin, a brutal blessing in a small, chipped glass, swallowed in haste in the dim, smoky confines of a cramped gin palace. The aroma is sharp, juniper and something else, something vaguely sweet and sickly, but right now it promises a fleeting, desperate reprieve. You feel the liquid warmth spread, a false flush of heat that rises to your cheeks, momentarily tricking your body into believing it isn't perpetually freezing. Around you, the air is thick with the murmur of low voices, the clink of glasses, and the weary sighs of others seeking the same temporary oblivion. The faces you glimpse in the flickering gaslight are haggard, drawn, their eyes holding a mixture of desperation and a fragile gin-induced hope. A woman beside you, her shawl pulled tight despite the stuffy air, stares vacantly into her own glass, her grip on it tight, as if it's the last lifeline she possesses. But even as the artificial heat blooms within you, the memory of the street outside, its pervasive damp, its chilling fog, its lurking, nameless terror, remains a cold, sharp claw at the back of your mind. The gin blurs the edges of your vision, softening the harsh reality of the grimy walls and the hollow-eyed stairs. It grants a momentary courage, a fragile bubble of forgetfulness that allows you to believe, just for a precious few minutes, that the horrors of Whitechapel aren't patiently waiting just beyond the grimy, swinging door. You hear the distant, muffled clatter of a passing hansom cab, a sound that ordinarily signals life, but tonight seems to pull you back, a grim reminder of the world you're trying so hard to escape. You take another sip, the harsh taste no longer quite so shocking, the false warmth now a welcome, albeit temporary friend. This isn't about pleasure, you realize. It's about survival, about numbing the cold and the fear, about gathering just enough Dutch courage to face the uncertain, terrifying path that inevitably leads back out into the night. It's a fragile, desperate bargain. A few pennies for a few moments of fleeting warmth, a brief illusion of safety against the brutal, unforgiving reality of the street. It's a stark reflection, isn't it? How readily human beings will grasp at any small warmth, any temporary escape, no matter how fleeting or how damaging, to simply endure the relentless chill of an existence overshadowed by profound, pervasive fear. The lingering, sickly sweetness of the cheap gin still clings to your tongue, a phantom warmth in your belly, but the true cold of the Whitechapel night instantly reasserts itself as you push through the swinging saloon doors. The fog, denser now, swallows the weak gaslight, making the street a murky, uncertain river. And as you step out, you're not just re-entering the biting chill, you're stepping back into the chilling reality of a society that, for all its grand imperial pretensions, has left so many to drown in its neglected undercurrents. You pass a child, huddled in a doorway, no more than a scrap of rags and bones, shivering uncontrollably. Her eyes, wide and hollow, hold a hunger far deeper than that for food, a quiet desperation that speaks of profound abandonment. Just a few streets away, carriages are rolling, carrying men in furs and women in silks to glittering theatres and opulent banquets. The vast, unshakable wealth of the empire, gathered from distant, exotic lands, coexists here with a poverty so crushing it makes your breath catch in your throat. This isn't simply misfortune, it's a systemic rot, a gaping wound at the heart of the world's most powerful city. The constant coughs that echo through the fog, the ragged clothes of almost everyone you pass, the sheer, unrelenting struggle etched onto every face, these are the true social poisons. They are the visible symptoms of a grand, indifferent machine that churns on, leaving countless lives broken and discarded in its wake. This isn't just about bad luck. It's about a deliberate turning away, a societal blindness to the suffering festering in its own backyard. The gin, the laudanum, the desperate choices made for a bed or a meal, these are merely the bitter, unavoidable fruits of profound neglect. You pull your thin shawl tighter around your shoulders, not just against the cold, but against the sheer, suffocating weight of this truth. The fear of the Ripper, you realize, has merely ripped open a much older, deeper wound, exposing the festering decay of social inequality that has been ignored for far too long. He is a symptom, a monstrous manifestation of the darkness that a supposedly enlightened empire allowed to flourish in its very foundations. And that, perhaps, is the true, enduring terror. Seeing how easily a society can breed its own monsters simply by refusing to look at the shadows it casts. The insistent chill is a familiar enemy, but tonight it's joined by something else, the dull, persistent ache of thin cotton chafing against your skin. You shift, trying to find a comfortable position on the rough, scratchy straw mattress that offers little more comfort than the bare floorboards beneath. It smells of damp, of stale sweat, and of the faint, cloying sweetness of decay that permeates everything in Whitechapel. You pull the threadbare blanket, riddled with holes, tighter around your shoulders, but it's a futile gesture. The cold simply laughs, seeping through the gaps, a relentless icy presence that seems to have claimed permanent residence in your very bones. Your fingers, chapped and rough from countless days of toil, trace the worn, frayed edges of the blanket. Each thread seems to tell a story of countless cold nights, of desperate attempts to find warmth, of an existence lived on the razor's edge of endurance. You remember the last meal, a meager crust of bread and a cup of weak tea swallowed hours ago, leaving behind a hollow, gnawing emptiness in your stomach that no amount of hot liquid or false comfort can truly appease. This isn't just hunger, it's a profound, systemic lack, a persistent void that defines every waking moment and haunts every fitful dream. You hear the soft, rhythmic cough of the woman in the next bunk, a thin, hacking sound that speaks of chronic illness, of lungs ravaged by the acrid London air and relentless damp. No one complains, no one offers comfort, it's just another part of the texture of this unwanted life. Outside, the distant cries of a night watchman, muffled by the pervasive fog, serve as a grim reminder of the lurking shadows, the unseen dangers that make even these squalid, cramped quarters a temporary sanctuary. But inside, there's another kind of danger, the slow, insidious erosion of hope, the gradual wearing away of the spirit by endless deprivation. You close your eyes trying to conjure an image of warmth, of a hot meal, of a soft bed, but the images feel foreign, distant, almost cruel in their stark contrast to your present reality. Your own body, aching and weary, feels like a burden, a heavy, unresponsive vessel that simply exists to endure. This isn't a life lived with purpose or joy, it's a life endured moment by desperate moment, each day a struggle against the crushing weight of circumstance. The very air you breathe feels heavy with the unspoken stories of countless others who have passed through these very rooms, leaving behind only the lingering scent of their own quiet despair. The lack of clean linens, the persistent smell of unwashed bodies, the dull pain in your joints, these are the constant, undeniable sensations that define your unwanted existence. And in this profound, inescapable state of unwantedness, you realize the chilling truth of your vulnerability. When life itself offers so little, when your very existence feels like a burden, the line between living and merely surviving becomes terrifyingly thin. It's a bitter truth, isn't it, how the relentless assault of poverty and neglect can strip away everything, leaving you exposed, utterly unprotected against the darkest forces that stalk the unseen alleys of a city that has long since forgotten you. The fog, it wraps around you, a damp grey shroud that doesn't distinguish between your threadbare coat and the grime of the wall, between your shivering breath and the cold, damp air itself. It's a familiar feeling, isn't it? This particular brand of London anonymity, you've moved through these alleys countless times, a phantom in the periphery of countless lives, a ghost in the vast, churning machinery of this city. No one truly sees you, not really. Your gaze might meet another's for a fleeting second, but it passes through, unrecognized, unremembered. You are merely one amongst thousands, one more weary face in the endless procession of forgotten souls. Polly, Annie, Liz, Catherine, Mary Jane, their names, now infamous, were once just like yours, whispered in common lodging houses, perhaps, or called out by a weary spouse, but utterly invisible to the grander, polished world beyond these squalid streets. They were the anonymous, the unwanted lives, as the newspaper editors so cruelly put it. Their struggles, their hopes, their quiet despairs, they meant nothing to the bustling city, to the grand dames in their carriages, to the gentlemen in their clubs. You've seen their faces, perhaps recognized the weary desperation in their eyes, the slumped shoulders, the forced smile. You knew they were there, and they knew you were too, a silent understanding of shared oblivion. And then, in the most barbaric, unspeakable way, they were seen. Not in life, not for their humanity, but in the gruesome, sensational headlines that screamed their fates across the city. Their bodies, once overlooked, became the shocking spectacle, the grotesque proof of a monster's presence. Their lives were worthless, perhaps, in the eyes of society, but their deaths suddenly mattered. They became the horrifying, unforgettable faces of Whitechapel's terror, etched into the public consciousness with a brutal, indelible ink. You feel a cold wave of horror, mixed with a profound sadness as you imagine the shock, the morbid curiosity that now greets their names, their faces. You pull your shawl tighter, the thin fabric a poor defense against the damp and the dread. You walk past a group of women, their voices low, hushed, speaking of the latest victim, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and a chilling, morbid fascination. They are talking about her, a woman just like them, a woman who in life was a fleeting shadow but in death has become a horrifying, unforgettable icon. You feel the profound, chilling irony of it all. It's a truly chilling irony, isn't it, that only through such profound, unholy violence did these invisible women finally, horrifyingly, achieve a kind of notoriety, a grim, lasting testament to lives that were only truly recognized in their final, brutal moments. What does it say about us, you wonder, that we only truly see the forgotten when their pain is laid bare for all to consume? It's not just in your eyes blurring the gaslights into sickly halos, nor just on your skin, a damp, clinging chill that seeps into your very bones. No, tonight the fog is inside you. You draw a breath and instantly it's there. A thick, sooty grit on your tongue, a sharp, acrid taste that burns the back of your throat. This isn't a gentle mist, it's the infamous London pea super, a visceral presence that you can almost chew. It tastes of damp coal smoke, yes, a bitter tang of burning cheap fuel, but also something metallic, almost industrial, clinging to your palate, leaving a greasy film. You try to swallow, but it's a struggle. Each breath feels heavy, like drawing in shredded fabric, coated with the grime of 1,000 chimneys. It's impossible to ignore. The fog becomes part of your very being, mingling with the scent of human desperation and river effluvium that permeates the air. You cough, a harsh, ragged sound that quickly becomes lost in the oppressive silence this thick, unnatural blanket creates. Your lungs ache, feeling congested, as if the very air itself is trying to suffocate you. This isn't just weather. It's a profound, atmospheric invasion. You lift a hand, seeing the faint, blurred outline of your own fingers, and then, almost unconsciously, you lick your lips. The taste is still there, tenacious, a gritty film that makes you recoil. It's like the city itself, unfiltered and raw, has decided to invade your mouth, coating your teeth and settling deep in your chest. You find yourself hunching your shoulders, pulling your scarf tighter over your mouth and nose, a futile attempt to filter the very air you need to survive. The world outside your immediate, fog-choked breath has vanished. Distant sounds are muffled, distorted, making every creak, every unseen footstep, a source of profound unease. The fog, you realize, isn't just hiding the killer. It's becoming an accomplice, a silent, choking conspirator. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? How the very air you breathe can become a physical manifestation of fear, a constant, bitter taste of dread that reminds you with every ragged breath that the unseen, the unspeakable, could be lurking just beyond the reach of your strained vision. It truly changes your perception of your own vulnerability, knowing that even the most fundamental act of living, breathing, is now tainted by an omnipresent, chilling menace. The fog, it's not just around you now, it's part of you, a cold, cloying embrace that muffles every sound, blurs every edge, and tastes like bitter ash on your tongue. You draw a breath, and it feels as though the entire grimy city has infiltrated your lungs, making each inhale a heavy, viscous effort. You strain your eyes, trying to pierce the swirling grey curtain that presses in from all sides, a wall of damp, chilling particulate. The gaslight, when you can even make out its feeble glow, is a sickly, indistinct halo, doing little more than defining the edges of your profound blindness. Every shadow is deeper, every silhouette indistinct, monstrous even, and you realize with a sickening lurch that this isn't just weather. This is the killer's cloak. This fog is his ally, his accomplice, his impenetrable shield. You can almost feel him moving through this same suffocating invisibility, a predator in his element, while you are left utterly disoriented, utterly vulnerable. The silence is thick, an unnatural hush broken only by the distant, disembodied clatter of unseen hooves, or perhaps the sudden, chilling drip of water from a hidden gutter. Your own heart pounds, a frantic drum against the oppressive quiet, each beat amplifying the terrifying knowledge that you cannot see more than a few feet in front of your face. What lies beyond that swirling grey? A wall, another alley. Or something far, far worse. You press a hand against the cold, damp brick of a tenement wall, seeking some tangible anchor in this world of shifting phantoms. The rough texture is a momentary comfort, a real thing in a landscape of illusions. But even this feels precarious, a flimsy barrier against the unknown. The imagination, fueled by weeks of horrifying headlines and whispered atrocities, paints 1,000 dark pictures in this impenetrable grey, turning every faint rustle into a possible approach, every fleeting shadow into a potential threat. You quicken your pace, a frantic, almost instinctual movement, driven by the desperate urge to escape this living, breathing shroud. This isn't just about the physical danger. It's the psychological terror of being utterly exposed in a world that has suddenly gone blind, a world where the very air conspires to hide the monster in plain sight. What could be more terrifying, you ponder, than to know the killer moves through the very same darkness that renders you completely helpless, transforming the familiar city streets into a vast, silent hunting ground, cloaked in a chilling, all-consuming fog? It's a profound and unsettling truth, isn't it, how an environmental phenomenon can so powerfully enable and amplify the darkest aspects of human depravity. The cold, damp air has been a constant companion, but now something else settles over you, heavier, more profound than any fog or chill. It's the silence, not the quiet of a country lane, but an absolute shocking cessation of the city's endless drone. The usual distant rumble of drays, the muffled shouts of hawkers, the relentless clatter of horses on cobblestones, all of it has simply vanished, as if the very breath of London has been abruptly held. You stand perfectly still, feeling the heavy, suffocating weight of this void press in on you from all sides. Your own breathing seems impossibly loud, a ragged, shallow gasp in the oppressive quiet. You can hear the frantic pounding of your heart, a frantic drum against the sudden, unnatural stillness. The air itself feels colder now, sharper, biting at your exposed skin, and you swear you can taste something metallic, something cloying and sickening, clinging to the back of your throat. It's the ghost of a smell, perhaps, or merely the vivid horror your mind conjures in this profound absence of sound. You strain your ears, listening desperately for anything. A distant dog bark, a child's cry, the comforting creak of an old building settling. Nothing, only the hollow echo of what should be there, and the terrifying knowledge of what must have happened to impose such a deep, unyielding quiet on a place so stubbornly alive. The darkness seems to thicken, no longer merely the absence of light, but an active, consuming presence, emboldened by the absolute brutal silence that has fallen. It's a truly harrowing thing, isn't it? To experience a silence so profound, so utterly devoid of life that it speaks volumes more than any scream. You realize that some horrors don't make a sound, they simply leave behind a chilling, echoing void that no amount of time, no measure of progress, can ever truly fill. That brutal silence, the one that clamped down after the last unspeakable act, it didn't just break. No, it lingered. It transformed slowly, subtly from a sharp, acute terror into a dull, gnawing ache in the collective chest of London. Days bled into weeks, then into months, and still no new headlines screamed from the newsboys' hands, no fresh atrocities stained the pages. The roar of the printing presses, once a constant, frantic drumbeat of dread, died down, replaced by a low, anxious hum of daily life trying desperately to reassert itself. Yet the air remained thick with a different kind of tension, a suspended breath. You find yourself constantly listening, straining for the news that doesn't come, an unnerving vigilance that refuses to fully dissipate. Each morning, as you pull back the flimsy curtains to a grey Whitechapel dawn, there's a flicker of relief, immediately followed by an odd, unsettling disappointment. He didn't make a mistake, you realize. He didn't get caught. He simply ceased, vanished back into the dense, churning anonymity of London, leaving only questions, only the gaping void where answers should have been. It's a profound, chilling absence, isn't it? The lack of an ending, the void of resolution. The city slowly, hesitantly began to exhale. The gaslight still danced with shadows, but the figures beneath it moved with a slightly less frantic urgency. Yet beneath this fragile veneer of returning normalcy, a deep, persistent unease festered. The fear hadn't gone, it had merely shape-shifted. It now resided in the unanswered questions, in the spectral image of an unknown man who could simply disappear without a trace, a phantom who had walked amongst them, committed unspeakable horrors, and then, with an almost magical, terrifying ease, simply faded back into the fabric of the city. He didn't just kill, he vanished, leaving behind a profound, open wound in the public consciousness. And that perhaps is the true, enduring terror, not just what he did, but that he was never truly accounted for. A ghost who walked among us and then simply faded, leaving only the shadow of his passing, forever stretching into the present. That's why, even today, you can still feel the chilling grip of that vanishing act, knowing that some monsters don't need to be caught to haunt us across centuries. You feel it before you even truly touch it, a faint, pervasive scent that cuts through the sterile air of the archive room. It's the distinct, unmistakable aroma of age. Dry, brittle paper, a ghost of old ink, and a fine, persistent dust that seems to carry with it the very essence of forgotten time. Your fingers, cool and hesitant, reach for the heavy cardboard box, its surface rough and slightly abrasive beneath your touch. A thin film of grey dust clings to your fingertips as you pull it from its resting place, feeling the surprising weight of decades of unresolved horror. The box is tied with a piece of faded, brittle string, a mundane detail that only serves to amplify the extraordinary contents within. With a soft, almost reverent sigh, you untie the knot, the string crumbling slightly between your fingers. Inside, packed meticulously, yet seemingly bursting with its own grim history, sits a collection of yellowed documents. The first thing you notice is a large, stiff folder, its label handwritten in elegant, looping copperplate script that has faded to a sepia tone. It announces, with stark, chilling simplicity, the Whitechapel murders. The words are a cold hand, reaching across centuries, pulling you back into the fog and fear of 1888. You open the folder and a faint, almost imperceptible puff of dusty air escapes, carrying with it that peculiar ancient scent. Inside, there are endless pages of brittle, thin paper, police reports, witness statements, faded medical notes, all meticulously pennied in the precise, formal hand of Victorian officialdom. You can almost hear the scratch of their pens, the weary sighs of the constables and coroners as they tried to make sense of the incomprehensible. Your eyes scan the tightly packed text, the minute details of lives cruelly extinguished, of leads chased and lost, of theories proposed and then utterly dismissed. Each page is a testament to effort, to frustration, to a profound, maddening lack of resolution. Amongst the dry text, you find blurred, grim photographs, the stark, unsettling faces of the victims, their eyes hollowed by death and the crude flash of the camera. Their gazes, fixed and unseeing, seem to hold all the unanswered questions, all the unspoken horrors of their final moments. You see crude sketches of alleyways, meticulously drawn street plans, marked with crosses and circles that denote the sites of unspeakable acts. The ink on these maps, once bold and definite, now seems to blur at the edges, mirroring the elusive nature of the killer himself. Every single piece of paper, every photograph, every scrawled note is a fragment of a puzzle that was never, ever completed. You close the file, the heavy cardboard cover falling back into place with a soft thud that echoes in the quiet room. The dust, disturbed, settles slowly, a visual metaphor for the lingering questions, the unresolved anguish that still clings to these documents. Decades have passed, the men who compiled this file are long gone, and the streets of Whitechapel have changed almost beyond recognition. Yet the chill of that dusty case file remains, an undeniable presence, a stark reminder that some mysteries, some terrors refuse to be buried by time. It truly makes you ponder, doesn't it, how the unclosed chapters of history, these lingering echoes of human cruelty, continue to exert such a powerful, almost magnetic pull on our imagination, even after all these years. That dust, the one that clung to the old case file, the one that settled on your fingers, it isn't just inert particles of paper and time, is it? No, it carries something else, something far more potent, an intangible chill that transcends mere history. It's the lingering echo of an unsolved puzzle, a faceless horror that refused to be caught, slipping through the fingers of the law and the relentless grip of time itself. You close your eyes, and you can almost feel that presence not as a flesh and blood man, but as a chilling, persistent current in the very air. The man, whoever he truly was, the one who walked those fog-choked streets of Whitechapel, committed those unspeakable acts, he vanished. But in that vanishing, something extraordinary and terrifying happened. He ceased to be just a man. He began his journey from a brutal, fleeting reality into something far more enduring, a myth. You see it reflected in the countless books, the whispered theories, the morbid fascination that still grips us today. His anonymity, the sheer lack of a definitive face or name, became his most potent weapon, turning him into a blank canvas for our deepest, most primal fears. He became the monster under the bed, the shadow in the alley, the embodiment of the darkness that lurks in the most civilized corners of society. Each unanswered question, each discarded suspect, only served to feed the growing legend, making him larger, more formidable, more terrifyingly ambiguous than any single human could ever be. You don't remember the real faces of Polly or Annie as clearly as you recall the chilling, fictionalized image of the Ripper that has been conjured over the centuries. That's the power of the unknown, isn't it? The sheer terrifying vacuum of information that allows imagination, fueled by fear, to run wild. He haunts not just London, but our very culture, appearing in countless stories, films, and nightmares, a constant reminder of the fragility of order and the enduring allure of darkness. He is the ultimate bogeyman, a spectral figure who represents our collective anxieties about the inexplicable, the uncontrolled, the evil that can exist in plain sight and then simply disappear. That's why, even now, you can still feel the chilling grip of his legend, knowing that some monsters don't need to be caught to stalk the halls of our imagination forever. He remains a profound testament to how the unresolved, the terrifyingly unknown can morph into an eternal myth, clinging to the deepest, most primal parts of our shared human fear. The light hits you first, not the flickering, gaslit gloom you've grown accustomed to, but a stark, uncompromising white glare that hums with an almost sterile intensity. It buzzes a low, persistent frequency that vibrates faintly in the air, a stark contrast to the oppressive silences of Whitechapel. You blink, your eyes adjusting to the almost painful brightness, the kind of illumination that leaves no shadow untouched, no crevice unexposed. The air here smells clean, sharp with disinfectants, and the metallic tang of advanced machinery, stripping away the pervasive stench of decay and coal smoke you've carried from the past. You find yourself in a room of gleaming surfaces and humming equipment, where everything is precise, ordered, meticulously controlled. This is the present. You lean in, your face reflected faintly in the polished glass of a large, complex optical device. Beneath it, bathed in that unforgiving, revealing light, rests something from another time. Perhaps a fragment of cloth carefully preserved, its fibers now magnified to colossal proportions, each strand a potential witness. Or a meticulously crafted miniature diorama of a crime scene, a tiny, accurate recreation of an alleyway, frozen in time, now illuminated with a relentless, searching intensity. You watch as a gloved hand, belonging to a figure whose movements are fluid, practiced, and utterly devoid of Victorian hesitation, manipulates a dial. The light shifts, probing, changing spectrums, trying to coax secrets from the very fabric of history. Ultraviolet beams reveal subtle discolorations, infrared penetrates layers of grime, each wavelength a new interrogation. There's a quiet intensity in the room, a hushed reverence for the past, yet also a fierce modern determination to force its secrets into the light. This isn't the cold, dispassionate clinical gaze of the Victorian doctor. This is the relentless, almost surgical gaze of 21st century forensics, refusing to let the shadows win. You see the intricate patterns of the old fabric, the microscopic traces of dirt, the faded, almost invisible stains that might once have been overlooked. Every detail, however minuscule, is under siege, bombarded by this artificial sun, forced to give up its hidden truths. The sheer, overwhelming power of this modern light feels almost aggressive in its pursuit of clarity, its defiance of the dark. It seeks to strip away every layer of fog, every veil of time, every deliberate concealment. Yet as you peer into the glowing display, you also feel a profound sense of the chasm that still remains. All this technology, all this brilliance, striving to unravel a horror born of gaslight and grime, of desperation and shadows. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if true evil can ever truly be captured by even the most powerful of lights, or if some darkness once unleashed simply transcends time and technology, choosing to remain forever out of reach. The air here, it's entirely different, isn't it? Not the damp, suffocating reek of Victorian London, but a crisp, sterile coolness, humming faintly with the quiet thrum of sophisticated machinery. You're in a lab, a clean, gleaming space where every surface reflects a clinical white light, a stark, almost blinding contrast to the gaslit gloom you've left behind. The sharp, antiseptic scent of modern disinfectants cuts through any lingering ghost of coal smoke, leaving your senses alert, almost overwhelmed by the sheer, unyielding clarity of this new environment. You lean closer, your breath fogging slightly on the clear shield before you, your eyes fixed on a display that pulls you across centuries. There, nestled within a secure, climate-controlled container, lies something utterly unassuming, yet profoundly chilling. It's a small, ancient fragment of bone, no bigger than your thumb, its surface a brittle, pale yellow. Under the intense, magnified glare of a powerful forensic light, every microscopic ridge, every subtle fissure becomes a vast, silent landscape. You can almost feel the profound cold emanating from it, not just the controlled temperature of the lab, but the deep, unshakable chill of a century of silence. This is a direct, tangible link to a life violently extinguished, a whisper from the past brought into the unforgiving light of the present. A gloved hand, precise and utterly steady, belonging to a figure whose movements are fluid, practiced, and devoid of the raw, emotional urgency of the Victorian constables, manipulates a dial. The light shifts, probing, changing spectrums, trying to coax secrets from the very structure of this ancient relic. Ultraviolet beams reveal subtle discolorations, infrared penetrates layers of grime, each wavelength a new, tireless interrogation. On a nearby screen, spectral overlays flicker into existence, digital enhancements highlight minute details, and you watch as every piece of modern technology is brought to bear on this tiny, fragile piece of history. They're searching for a hairline fracture, a faint striation, anything that could speak of a final, brutal struggle, anything to give voice to the unspoken terror of that night, of those final, horrifying moments. Yet as you peer into the glowing display, the bone remains stubbornly, defiantly silent. It offers its texture, its age, its undeniable presence as proof of a life lived and ended, but no confession, no name, no definitive answer. You think of the woman whose very essence this tiny fragment once was, discarded in a nameless alley, her life extinguished with such savage precision. Her final moments, reduced to a whisper on a microscopic surface, remain just beyond reach, tantalizingly close yet forever obscured by time, by violence, by the inherent limitations of what physical evidence alone can truly reveal. The meticulous attention, the relentless probing of 21st century science, feels almost like a desperate act of empathy, a profound, almost ritualistic attempt to bridge the vast chasm between her forgotten scream and our modern comprehension. You see the subtle slump in the shoulders of the technician, a momentary flicker of that familiar frustration you know so well from those old police reports. All the knowledge, all the technology, all the tireless dedication, and still, the ultimate truth remains locked within the stubborn, unyielding silence of the past. These bones, you realize, have stories etched deep within their very structure, profound and chilling narratives, but they steadfastly refuse to speak in a language we can fully understand. They hold a profound, aching sorrow, a testimony to terror, yet the final, crucial piece of the puzzle, the name of the man who inflicted such devastation, remains tantalizingly, maddeningly out of reach. It's a truly profound thought, isn't it? The hushed reverence of the darkened room is shattered by a soft, insistent whirring, a delicate, mechanical hum that vibrates subtly through the floorboards beneath your feet. It's the sound of a projector, a modern device spinning its reels, preparing to conjure ghosts from another century. The air, cool and still, carries the faint, nostalgic scent of warm electronics mixed with a whisper of dust. Then a sharp, rectangular beam of light slices through the gloom, a brilliant, focused spear cutting a path towards the far wall, where it expands into a stark, expectant rectangle of luminous white. Your eyes, accustomed to the soft, flickering gaslight of Whitechapel, now adjust to this pure, unwavering intensity. You feel the subtle warmth of the beam on your face as dust motes dance frantically within its path, like tiny, frantic stars caught in a cosmic current. And then the images begin to form, shifting, coalescing from the brilliant void. They are black and white, grainy, sometimes almost spectral themselves. Blurred photographs of cobblestone streets, chilling reenactments of figures shrouded in fog, and then the familiar, unsettling outlines of the victims' faces, stark and unblinking. But it's a different image that truly grips you, isn't it? A shadow, not a physical presence, but a carefully constructed visual, a dark, indistinct silhouette that appears on the screen, looming over the stylized map of Whitechapel. It's tall, menacing, utterly devoid of detail, yet impossibly tangible in its implied presence. This is the Ripper, not the man, but the myth, rendered in pure, concentrated darkness. You watch as it moves, a silent, predatory glide across the grim landscape, a chilling representation of the unseen, unknowable terror that stalked those gaslit alleys. The very lack of features, the sheer anonymity of this projected shadow makes it all the more terrifying, a blank canvas for every unspeakable fear you can imagine. The room is silent, a collective held breath. You feel the weight of countless eyes, all fixed on that screen, all trying to decipher the phantom movements of this eternal predator. This shadow, you realize, is a deliberate conjuring, a visual shorthand for a monster that has defied capture for over a century. It's the enduring power of the unknown brought to life by modern technology, amplified by the stark contrast between light and dark. It's a truly unsettling thing, isn't it, how we continue to invite these old terrors into our lives, projecting them onto our screens, allowing their shadows to dance anew for each generation. You realize that the Ripper's terrifying legacy isn't just in the history books. It's alive, forever reanimated in the constant, chilling glow of our insatiable need to understand, and to be frightened by, the darkness that can never quite be fully illuminated. The projected image, that stark, unsettling shadow of the Ripper, has faded from the screen, leaving the room once again in a hushed, expectant darkness. But the chill it left behind, that lingering echo of an unseen presence, it clings to you, doesn't it? It's a phantom cold that settles deep in your bones, a visceral reminder of the primal fear that transcends the decades. The air itself feels heavy, charged with the collective breath of everyone else in this room, all of you caught in the lingering grip of a story that refuses to die. You hear soft murmurs, hushed whispers of theories, of possibilities, a restless stirring as people shift in their seats, trying to shake off the invisible chains of Victorian terror. You find yourself doing it too, running a hand over your own arm as if to physically wipe away the goosebumps. Why does this story, born of gaslight and grime, of brutality and a terrifying vanishing act, still hold such an insistent, almost magnetic pull on our modern minds? It's more than just the unsolved mystery, you realize. It's the unsettling allure of the unknown, the primal dread of a monster without a face, a shadow that moved through a bustling city and simply evaporated. That lack of resolution, that gaping void where an answer should be, it's what truly keeps us tethered to those fog-choked streets of 1888. It's the story without an ending, the puzzle missing its final, crucial piece, forever challenging us to complete it. You lean forward, your gaze fixed on the now empty screen, imagining the stark, grainy photographs, the meticulously pennied police reports, the desperate letters, all the fragments of a truth that was never fully revealed. This isn't just history, it's an active, ongoing interrogation, a relentless human need to understand the incomprehensible. We crave answers, don't we? We yearn to shine a definitive light into the darkest corners, to tame the terrifying chaos of true evil with a name, a motive, a clear narrative. But with the Ripper, that satisfaction is forever denied, and that perhaps is the heart of our morbid fascination. He remains an enigma, a canvas for our deepest anxieties about the darkness that can exist within humanity, the kind of evil that defies logic, escapes justice, and leaves an indelible, haunting mark on the very fabric of time. He forces us to confront the unsettling truth that some terrors simply cannot be contained, cannot be explained away, and that perhaps is why his shadow continues to dance so vividly, so unsettlingly in the glow of our modern screens, a chilling, persistent reminder of the monsters that lurk in the enduring corners of the human psyche. You realize that his haunting power lies not in being seen, but in forever remaining unseen, a perpetual question mark etched into the soul of a city, and indeed the world. The cold brush of 1,000 strangers is your first sensation as you step out, not onto a quiet lane, but into the relentless, surging tide of humanity that is Victorian London. You are swallowed whole immediately by the sheer press of bodies, a cacophony of muffled voices, the rhythmic thud of countless boots on wet pavement, and the clatter of invisible wheels. The air here is a dizzying swirl of damp wool, cheap perfumes, stale tobacco, and an undercurrent of something indefinable, something uniquely human. You are utterly surrounded, yet profoundly, terrifyingly alone. You push your way through the throng, jostled and nudged, a mere anonymous speck in this vast, churning ocean of faces. Each person you pass is a fleeting glimpse, a tired clerk, a bustling shopkeeper, a woman with a child clutched to her skirt, a gentleman in a top hat whose eyes flick over you with an almost imperceptible disdain. No one truly sees you, not with recognition, not with care. You are just another moving form, a fleeting shadow in their periphery, and they are the same to you. This anonymity, usually a cloak of freedom in a bustling city, has become something far more sinister, hasn't it? It's in this overwhelming sea of unknown faces that the Ripper's terror truly takes root. He wasn't a spectral monster of the countryside, a legend from a forgotten village. No, he was here among them, among *you. Another face in this endless, indifferent crowd. You find yourself scanning unconsciously, your gaze darting from one passing stranger to the next, searching for what? A flicker in their eyes, a hidden gesture. The very impossibility of identifying him in this sprawling, faceless mass is what makes him so terrifyingly potent. He could be anyone, he could be everyone. You feel a profound chill unrelated to the damp air. It's the chilling realization that in this metropolis of millions, where countless lives intersect and diverge, one man completely unknown can inflict such devastating personal horror and then simply melt away, unnoticed, back into the vast, anonymous embrace of the city. He is not just a monster, he is the ultimate embodiment of urban dread, a phantom made possible by the very fabric of modern city life. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? That in a place so densely populated, so teeming with life, the greatest fear can stem from the very anonymity it offers. You realize that the sheer scale of the city, while promising freedom, can also become the perfect, chilling cloak for the darkest of human evils. The very air of this metropolis feels different now, doesn't it? Not just cold or damp, but thick, heavy, as if the city itself is holding its breath. You walk through its bustling arteries, pushed and pulled by the relentless tide of humanity, and you realize that this isn't just a collection of streets and buildings. It's a living, breathing entity, a monstrous organism. Its sheer scale, its ceaseless churn of industry and human desperation, all combine to create a perfect, terrifying hunting ground. The pervasive anonymity, the endless sea of unknown faces, the labyrinthine alleys that swallow light and sound, these aren't flaws you now understand. They are the very cloaks and daggers of the monster that walks amongst you. You hear the rumble of the underground, the distant shriek of train whistles, the never-ending clang of metal on metal from unseen factories. These sounds, once symbols of progress, now feel like the restless, agitated pulse of a beast that simply devours, indifferent to the suffering in its shadows. You see the opulent carriages rolling past, their occupants glimpsed for a moment, insulated by glass and privilege, and then you turn a corner back into the crushing poverty, the desperate struggle for a single penny. The stark, jarring contrast isn't just a social divide, it's the very ecosystem in which the Ripper thrived, where some lives were deemed so worthless that their disappearance barely caused a ripple, except for the screams that followed. This isn't just a killer in a city, you realize. This is a killer asterisk of the city, a product and a master of its inherent darkness. He understands its rhythms, its hidden passages, its profound indifference. He moves through its vastness like a whisper, invisible in plain sight, a spectral embodiment of all the unspoken fears and societal rot that lie festering beneath the grand Victorian facade. The gaslight, once a beacon, now seems merely to illuminate the shadows he hides within, making the known terrifying and the unknown utterly horrific. The city itself, in its overwhelming, impersonal grandeur, becomes both his stage and his accomplice. And that's why he still haunts us even today, because the Ripper isn't just a historical killer, he's the eternal shadow of the metropolis, a chilling reminder that in the heart of our greatest creations, where millions converge, there can also exist a darkness so profound, so utterly elusive, that it becomes an indelible part of the very fabric of our urban existence. You realize that the city, for all its light and life, can also be the perfect chilling cradle for pure, unadulterated evil. The air bites at your face, a crisp metallic chill that's distinctly 21st century, yet somehow still laced with the pervasive dampness that clings to London. You step off the bustling main road, the roar of modern traffic fading to a muffled thrum, and plunge into the immediate quiet of a narrow, nondescript alleyway. The smell is different now, a sharper tang of stale rubbish from sleek plastic bins, a faint chemical whiff of graffiti cleaner mingled with the inescapable urban damp. Your footsteps, a solid, rhythmic crunch on the grimy concrete, echo unnervingly in the sudden quiet, bouncing off the stark, unadorned brick walls that rise on either side. A harsh, white LED light, a brutal glare compared to the old gas lamps, spills from a high-mounted security camera, casting long, stark shadows that writhe with an almost menacing intensity. You can see everything, or so it seems, every piece of discarded takeaway, every faded spray-painted tag. Yet paradoxically, this overbearing clarity doesn't diminish the unease, it amplifies it. You instinctively pull your collar tighter, not just against the cold, but against a primal chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. You're alone here, or so you believe, but the stillness feels pregnant with unseen presences. Then you hear it, another set of footsteps, not yours, muffled at first, then growing clearer, approaching from the far end of the alley beyond the pool of harsh light. They are deliberate, measured, a rhythmic scuff that vibrates through the soles of your shoes. Your heart gives a sudden, sharp lurch, a quick, almost embarrassing surge of adrenaline. It's a primal, unbidden fear, one that doesn't belong in a city of CCTV and emergency helplines. Yet it's there, sharp and insistent, whispering through the cold air. You instinctively press back against the cold brick, trying to shrink into the deep shadow cast by an overflowing recycling bin. Your eyes dart, straining to pierce the gloom where the modern light fails, trying to decipher the approaching figure. Is it just a late worker, a delivery driver, or something else entirely? The rational part of your brain tries to reassure you, but the deep, evolutionary memory of countless stories, of centuries of urban dread overrides it all. This isn't 1888, you remind yourself. There's no fog, no gaslight, no Jack the Ripper stalking these precise, grim lanes. And yet, in the face of those approaching footsteps, in the chilling anonymity of this seemingly safe modern alley, the past feels impossibly close, a chilling echo. You realize, with a shiver that has nothing to do with the weather, that some fears are so deeply ingrained in our shared consciousness, so perfectly enabled by the enduring geometry of urban shadows, that they simply transcend time itself. The true terror perhaps isn't about who is coming, but the enduring, terrifying knowledge that someone still walks the shadows, and in this instant that someone is utterly unknown. The footsteps fade, then vanish entirely, swallowed by the indistinguishable rumble of the city, and you let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. The stark LED light still glares, relentless, yet the sense of profound unease lingers, a cold, sharp claw at the back of your throat. It's a primal fear, one that doesn't care for the advancements of a new century, for security cameras or brightly lit high streets. It speaks of something far older, far deeper, an instinct that tells you that shadows, even modern ones, still hold the capacity for terror. You pull away from the cold brick wall, dusting off your modern coat, and glance back at the empty alley. It's clean, functional, unremarkable. But the ghost of the Ripper, you realize, still haunts these precise urban spaces, not because of what he physically did, but because of what his actions revealed. He ripped open the polite Victorian facade, exposing the festering wounds of inequality, the profound vulnerability of the forgotten, and the chilling ease with which an unseen monster could operate in a city that had grown too large, too anonymous, too indifferent to its own underbelly. And here you are, a century and a half later, in a city with different problems, different technologies, but with some chillingly familiar echoes. The anonymity of the metropolis still provides perfect cover. The vulnerable, though different in circumstance, still exist on the fringes. Violence, though perhaps less overtly theatrical, still stalks the shadows. The lesson, the terrifying, unlearned lesson of the Ripper, isn't just about catching a killer. It's about confronting the darkness that human societies continue to generate, the spaces they leave for monsters to thrive. We've built taller buildings, brighter lights, faster communication, yet the core fear of the unknown predator, the unsettling knowledge that profound evil can exist just a few footsteps away, remains. You walk out of the alley, back into the ceaseless hum of 21st century London, and the sheer volume of human noise washes over you. But you listen differently now, don't you? You perceive the subtle undercurrents, the lingering shadows, the unspoken anxieties that persist despite all our progress. The Ripper's terrifying legacy isn't confined to history books. It's a living, breathing testament to the enduring vulnerabilities of human nature and the unsettling fact that some lessons, no matter how brutal, seem destined to be relearned, generation after generation, in the unchanging, unsettling dance between light and dark. It's a truly humbling and unnerving thought, isn't it, that even today, after all this time, the echoes of that long-ago terror still whisper through our modern streets, a constant reminder of the darkness we carry. The air here is different, isn't it? A quiet chill that settles deep, carrying the earthy tang of damp soil and the faint, sweet scent of decaying leaves. You walk slowly, your footsteps hushed on the uneven path, between rows of silent grey headstones. Each one stands as a testament, a marker to a life lived, a name remembered, a date of passing etched into the cold stone. You pass ornate mausoleums, simple wooden crosses, and weathered slabs that have seen generations come and go, each grave a whisper of a story, a finite end to an earthly journey. But you're searching for a different kind of grave, aren't you? One that isn't here. You scan the names, the dates, the small, tender offerings of flowers, and a profound, chilling absence begins to settle in your chest. This graveyard, for all its quiet solemnity, doesn't hold the one you're looking for. There's no grand monument, no simple stone, not even a forgotten, overgrown patch of earth for him. The man, the monster, the terrifying shadow who once stalked the gaslit alleys of Whitechapel has no known resting place. You stop, surrounded by these silent witnesses to countless lives, and you feel the weight of that emptiness. It's a void not just in this hallowed ground, but in our very understanding. No final rites, no last judgment, no place for a simple cross or a condemning epitaph. His life ended, of course, somewhere, somehow. But the absolute lack of an ending, the void where his grave should be, it's what fuels the enduring terror, isn't it? It's what keeps him alive, a phantom in our collective consciousness, a ghost without a body to anchor him to the earth. This isn't merely the lack of a grave, it's the eternal unclosed chapter, a chilling testament to the unfinished business of history. You reach out, almost unconsciously, your hand brushing against the cold, rough stone of an anonymous Victorian grave, and you feel a profound connection not just to the dead, but to the living who still search for answers, for closure. That he simply disappeared, leaving no trace, no final resting place, ensures that his shadow continues to stretch across centuries, haunting us with the sheer, terrifying power of the unknown. And in that vast, empty space where his grave should be, the terror of Jack the Ripper continues to thrive, forever without an ending. The cool, smooth glass of your screen reflects your own face, slightly distorted by the faint glow emanating from the historical photograph. The quiet hum of your device, a near-silent whisper in the modern air, is the only sound, a stark contrast to the cacophony of Victorian London you've just explored. You scroll, your thumb brushing over crisp digital images, the stark, unsettling faces of the victims, the grimy alleyways, the blurred, spectral recreation of the killer's unknown form. You feel a familiar, persistent pull, a gnawing curiosity that has drawn countless others before you, a cold hand reaching across centuries. Why do we still hunt for Jack the Ripper? You ask yourself this, even as you continue to pore over the details, knowing there's no new evidence, no final confession to be found. It's not just the unsolved nature of the crimes, though that certainly plays its part, a dangling thread in the tapestry of history. No, it's something deeper, more primal. He remains a chilling, potent symbol, a dark mirror reflecting our own persistent anxieties about the world around us. He is the ultimate urban phantom, a monster born of the very metropolis, who demonstrated how easily absolute anonymity could cloak unspeakable evil, even in the heart of the most powerful empire. You think back to the social poisons, the vast chasm between wealth and abject poverty, the vulnerability of the forgotten women forced to walk the gaslit streets. The Ripper didn't create these conditions, but he exploited them with chilling precision, ripping open the polite Victorian facade and exposing its festering wounds for all to see. He became the embodiment of the darkness that a society, however civilized, can generate when it turns a blind eye to its own underbelly. And that lesson, that terrifying fragility of order, still resonates today, doesn't it? We may have brighter lights and sharper cameras, but the fear of the unseen, the unconstrained evil lurking in the vastness of our cities remains. He is the enduring nightmare because he remains nameless, faceless, a blank canvas onto which we project our deepest, most persistent fears about human depravity. He challenges our fundamental need for order, for justice, for a tidy resolution. The fact that he simply vanished, a ghost leaving only a trail of terror, ensures that his shadow stretches endlessly into our present, a constant, chilling reminder that some mysteries refuse to be tamed by time or technology. He is the monster that got away, and in that escape he became eternal, a dark legend that continues to whisper through our modern consciousness, ensuring that we, the inheritors of his terror, remain forever in the hunt for answers that may never come. It's a strange thing, isn't it, how a century and a half later, a handful of brutal, unsolved murders continue to haunt us so profoundly, a testament to the enduring power of the unknown and our relentless, almost desperate human need to confront the darkness that lies just beyond our grasp.